Hi there, welcome to Let's Talk Tottenham, and the good mood from the weekend with the win over Wolves has now been completely reversed with the news yesterday that Kane has handed a transfer request in. I'm joined by Abbi Summers to primarily talk about the Kane transfer and who we get to replace him and what this means for the team, and will anyone else leave, what it means for the new manager targets that are coming in. Also talk a little bit about the Wolves win and the back four, Hojbjerg, Dele, and the season overall, feelings for the season overall, which from yesterday have taken a massive dip, even more so than usual. And the protests at the weekend against Enoch and Levy, and a little prediction about the Villa game. So all that and more in Let's Talk. Harry, please don't go. Hi Abby, thanks so much for coming on. How are you doing?
I'm okay, how are you?
Yeah, I'm not too bad. A bit down in the dumps about the Harry Kane news, but I have no idea what to believe, because normally these stories are on Sky and then BBC, maybe a delay of a minute or two, but it's not really on BBC at all. I mean, what's your take on it?
Look, I expect him to go. I thought it would be the him or Son that would leave. So it hasn't really come as much of a surprise to me. Obviously, I'm devastated by it. He's the one person I'd, give my kidney to keep. Not just not just the goal side of it, but just him as him as a role model, what he means to the club, what he brings to the club. For me, he's absolutely priceless. So it's heartbreaking that we've got ourselves in this situation, but he's always said as long as the club's moving in the right direction, he'll stay. I look back on the last kind of three seasons, maybe a bit longer, and I think that it hasn't been moving in the right direction for quite some time now. So he's been patient, he's been loyal, and I know lots of people are saying, oh, you shouldn't want him to leave, and it's like, well, I don't want him to leave, but I can't begrudge him for wanting to go and win trophies. He deserves to win trophies, and it's not going to happen at Tottenham. It's just not, and it won't happen anytime soon. And what we've built under Pochettino, and arguably even under Redknapp, I think has been kind of undone from what I'm seeing lately, and just it's directionless for me at the moment where we are. So you can't expect someone of his talent to stay after he's been so loyal and given everything. He's given all he can, and he deserves to go and win trophies. And if it's not going to be with Spurs, which it won't be, you can't blame the guy at 27 years old for wanting to go and do that.
No, I think the 16-17 season, I think that was the season when we finished second behind Chelsea, 86 points. I mean, that was a season, go out and buy maybe two top players to really push us to the next level. I don't think that was a season where we didn't buy anyone, was it? I think that was the season afterwards. But...
No, so that was the season that our last season at the Lane. And for me, we sold Kyle Walker, and yes, we did replace Walker, but not to the level Walker was at. And I didn't really have a grievance then, but my grievance came that second season, the end of the first season at Wembley. And, you could see there were certain areas that we really need to improve on. And at that point, I thought it was only maybe 2 or 3 players we needed to, bring in. And obviously we didn't do anything. And then, of course, we got to a Champions League final that following season by some miracle of God. And again, these things papered over cracks. But for me, even getting to the Champions League final, you saw from the January time of 2019, the squad was in urgent need of refreshing. And my problem is always the same with Spurs and this board and chairman, that they're very reactive and they're not proactive. And I think if you run a football club being reactive, you're never going to achieve anything that you are going to want to achieve. And I think that's where Pochettino was always butting heads with Daniel Levy on that topic, because, if he wants to refresh the squad, whether it, bringing in Davison Sanchez and trying to get rid of Toby Alderweireld, I'm not saying it's the correct decision, but you could see he was trying to bring in younger, fresher legs. And at that time, arguably, Toby still had enough time and years left in him to still play at the level. But just as an example like that, you could see what he wanted to do. But on the flip side, it always comes back to our recruitment. If you're constantly going to keep buying your 3rd, 4th, 5th choices, then you're going to get 3rd, 4th, 5th results and not 1st or 2nd. If you constantly cut corners and you try and recruit players from, back end of a Belgian league or a Dutch league or anything like that, it doesn't bring pedigree with you. And that's not being disrespectful to the players. But if you look at Spurs, and where Spurs had gone to under Pochettino and their development, you know, not just Pochettino, even under Harry Redknapp, under Martin Jol, and the steps we'd taken, it always gets to a certain point with Spurs where they're doing really well and they just need one or two things to get them over the line, a bit of pedigree, and you never get it. No. You get, you know, a bargain buy or someone for the sake of it that doesn't impact the team, doesn't do anything really. So for me, we're in this position purely for one reason and one reason only, and it always comes back to the board and the lack of investment, the lack of good investment and good recruitment. And unfortunately, they've got blood on their hands when it comes to someone like Harry Kane. Absolutely. And also, not just on Harry Kane, but the situation the club is in now. You know, we had stability for the first time in a very long time, and everything's going great. And all Pochettino needed was a little bit of backing, the right backing. And that's not to say Pochettino was, you know, blameless in certain situations. We all can probably appreciate he made wrong substitutions at times, late substitutions, strange tactics in big games. Okay. But, you know, as overall, I'd say that the fact that our fan base is still upset about that sacking shows you that he did far more good than bad. And I think that the Jose Mourinho appointment for me, even going back to the beginning, it was bizarre because you're getting a checkbook manager with a club that don't really have a checkbook. So again, it's just, we've just taken so many steps back, and it's just a shame, just a real shame.
I think the Mourinho was to win a trophy because that's what he does, which makes it even more ridiculous. He's the only manager in history to have beaten Pep Guardiola in a final, and then he gets sacked 6 days before a final against said manager. Like, he's brought in to win a trophy, his first chance at doing it, and he's fired, which for me, just what was the point in bringing Mourinho in? I know Pochettino was struggling, and that's partly his fault, but a lot of the blame goes to ENIC and Levy, like you said. And I think you nailed it on the head. I think there has been investment, a lot of investment by him, but it's the wrong investment.
But it's cutting corners. It's cutting corners, you know. And I never buy this that Spurs have no money. Spurs have money, believe me. You know, I was lucky enough to do an interview with Harry Redknapp last year, and Harry openly said that, you know, Roman Abramovich and Joe Lewis are arguably matched in terms of financial clout. But the difference is that Joe Lewis doesn't put it back into the club. And I know factually that the money that's gone back into the club over the last 9-10 years has been generated by the success of the managers, arguably a large chunk by Pochettino in what he managed to build. So when you have an owner that doesn't utilise what he's there to do fundamentally, and he wants to run it as a business, he makes his money and he sits on his yacht, fine. But you can't then argue with disgruntled fans, you know, who give every last penny to go and watch their team and love their club with such passion that, you know, look at the decline we've had from what we've built. And we all know where we were in the 90s and, you know, the early 2000s. You know, I remember being at school and I was one of the only Spurs fans in my school. Everyone loved United, everyone loved Arsenal. That was the way it was. And to, you know, get your team by 2010 to being in the Champions League, to building something, to, you know, your style of football was great, everything. And it's just, what are you doing managing a club if you only want to balance the books? You know, it's just, football is passionate. Football might generate more money than anything. But at the end of the day, if you're going to manage a club which people put their heart and soul into, give some of it back, put it on the pitch, you know, give them something to go and believe in. If you're going to charge extortionate prices as well, please just give us something.
I just don't think they care about that. I think you said it yourself, run it as a business. I think if you ask them, have you been successful in your time at Tottenham? I think they'd say yes, because I think they bought it for 22 million. It's now worth in the billions. So in terms of a financial standpoint, they've been a massive success, but it's financial in their pocket. But you've obviously got I think you've got 2 points if you run a football club. You've got to be financially stable and you've got to get the results on the pitch, which I think he's not really bothered about that. It's just, well, I've got my money. I'm the most highly paid chairman in the league when I don't really do a huge amount. And I've always said I don't think he's the worst chairman in the world, because I think he has made us financially stable. Obviously, coronavirus is going to have an effect in that, but he's made a lot of mistakes. But this ESL stuff, and I mean, I read the apology, which my friend's 4-year-old, I could get a better apology from her because there wasn't one. And it's just, he doesn't care about the fans, I don't think, at all. He doesn't even regard the fans as anywhere near his level of stature. So it's like, well, I'm not apologising to them. Who are they? But
no, because I have to say, look, if you look at the ESL thing from a completely selfish perspective, yes, it would have been fantastic for Spurs. Of course it would have been, you know, the injection of money and what that would have meant for the club. Fantastic. But you can't undermine the whole of football and the football pyramid for your own benefit or six club benefit. That's just morally wrong. And that just shows you how, you know, the game is so far gone in terms of what makes the game beautiful. It's just become very, very ugly. And that's also to do with Sky and to do with BT and all the TV money that goes into it. Then they can't be held blameless for it. I know they're flying the flag for anti-ESL, but at the same time, they're the ones that started the ball rolling with all these money injections into football. And I think when it comes to Daniel Levy, we have a very big issue where our chairman owns a large share of the club. So everyone, I appreciate them going to the protest. I want to protest. I want my voice to be heard. I've been banging this ENIC drum for years. And it's not to say I don't appreciate what they've done off the pitch. We have a fantastic stadium, a fantastic training ground. But I guarantee you, if you ask everyone, would you rather have the old training ground on the old stadium and have beautiful football and stability and good football and, you know, a manager and a chairman that love the club? I reckon we'd all be very happy still at White Hart Lane.
Yeah.
And I understand it's been corrupt, you know, coronavirus and there's been corruptions, but I don't think it would have made any difference if coronavirus would have been there or not. I think that if you think back to the games just before Corona hit, I was at that game against Norwich in the Cup. It was so toxic that night when Eric Dyer jumped into the stand. And if anything, I actually think coronavirus benefited Spurs, the fact that they had the break in a weird way, just to, you know, let tensions die down and stuff. But I don't know, it's very difficult when the chairman and the club don't want to match their ambition on the pitch. And if they were smart, you know, if they want to sell the club, as far as I'm aware, they do want to sell the club. But where it was valued at pre-corona, we're in 2019, you know, we just got to a Champions League final. We still had Champions League football. We still were not in the position we're in now. And it was arguably a lot more attractive to demand the money they wanted for it. But now you fast forward to 2021, after coronavirus, nowhere near the Champions League. Your best player is most likely leaving, and you've got no manager. And if they just would have given investment at the right time, you know, a little bit of good investment goes a very long way in terms of they want to sell it, being a more attractive outfit to sell, you know, finishing in the top 4 spots. You'd get a lot more buyers if you were looking and you were able to do that. But we're so far off the pace, and I just can't. When I look at the table, I can't believe that we were even, you know, still there or thereabouts for Champions League. When everyone's raving about Chelsea's season and West Ham's season, how amazing they've been, and I think, oh my God, we've had the most awful season, and we're still somewhere there. Can't believe that.
Well, I think next season you might be looking a bit further down, but
I reckon so.
But I mean, Jose Mourinho has won God knows how many trophies. He's a manager that kind of demands all of this and all of that. Even he was then going, well, we can't afford anybody. If someone like him can't get Levy to change his attitude, mind, or whatever, is there any hope for anybody? Or are we just going to be constantly having this conversation about ENIC don't spend what needs to be spent and don't get the players that the manager wants every time there's a new manager? Or is there someone out there who can kick in?
No, we've we had how many years did Daniel Levy? 21, 22 years, and it's been the same topic with every single manager. And my God, we've had a lot of managers in that time. So it does, in my opinion, it's an endless cycle. Like, you know, you get to a certain point, you need the correct investment, it drops back down because you don't get it, and then you sack the manager, you get a new manager, you go on a bit of a roll again, you get to a certain point, you need the injection of good players, and again nothing happens, you sack the manager, and it's the same cycle. So whilst that board and that, you know, that ethos is there and how they want to run it, nothing will change. And it's just insanity, that old saying, when you keep repeating the same thing over and over again, it's insanity. Well, yeah, it is insanity. And unfortunately, with us fans, it's kind of got us over a barrel, because we're always going to pay our season tickets. You know, we just are. You know, we could do what Arsenal do and boycott it, okay, but at the end of the day, ENIC will go at some point, and Daniel Levy will go at some point. And you have to try and remember that you support the club, regardless of who is unfortunately at the helm at that point. You know, we've also had terrible chairmen in the past that we all don't agree with. So it's very difficult to differentiate that when tensions are so high, especially at the moment. But I just think that they're all told to say a certain thing. We know that. So, You know, Jose Mourinho will have been told he's really happy with the squad when he came in. They don't need to add any players. Of course he's going to say that. He's just got the job. Daniel Levy's told him, you have to say that. If he was probably honest, he'd say, oh my God, like, what are you talking about? But I believe that Jose Mourinho was promised some real investment by Daniel Levy to get the signature. Daniel Levy had always wanted Jose Mourinho. It was kind of a bit of a trophy for himself to go and get a manager he'd always wanted at Spurs. And it just was a marriage of convenience for both. I really think, you know, Jose wanting to have one last shot at the top table in England. And I don't know. My whole thing is they keep saying that they don't have any money. It leaves the expectation and the bar very low. And that's why I think they do it most of the time.
Yeah. Well, I think we obviously need a new manager. We've been turned down by a few. We're seemingly after every manager in the world at the moment. But you're then potentially going after. Do you want to be our manager? By the way, the best striker in the world is off, so you've got to find another one. But I mean, the issue with that as well is you can't really get a replacement because you need the manager's approval on who the replacement is. And they're talking about the summer, aren't they? I mean, Kane allegedly has said he wants to be moved on by the Euros. That won't happen. But do you think he'll even move? Because it's very well he can hand a transfer request in, but he still needs Levy to accept offers. And I think Levy could price him out. I mean, there's talk of Haaland coming, but I think Dortmund will price him out. So, but if Levy says, well, it's 200 million if you want him, he's got 3 years left on his contract, you make 200, then he's off. And do you see him going, or do you think Levy will make it really difficult if he hands a request?
I do think he'll go. I genuinely believe he will go, purely for the fact that I don't think Harry will want to be the type of person to hand in a transfer request. You know, he loves the club. We know he loves the club, and it's not something I think that he has taken a decision on this if he has lightly. I think that it's come out of pure necessity rather than actually, you know, wanting to move away from a club he loves and a fan base that absolutely idolises him. But, you know, at the end of the day, he needs to win trophies. He deserves to win trophies. And that's that. You raised a good point about the outpricing, and that is always a possibility with Daniel Levy. I think he'll say 150 minimum. I've always said somewhere between 150 and 200 is the price I thought that they'd stick on him. So, look, if someone comes in and slaps, you know, 170 on the table or 200 on the table, it's very difficult to turn down. I don't believe Daniel Levy would turn that down. My fear is that this will go on the whole summer. And, you know, we'll do it like typical Daniel Levy style, last day of the transfer window, and then we'll be absolutely bollocked for the new season to come because we'll have all this cash with no reinforcements. But, you know, I don't think Harry Kane will be the only person going out the door. Obviously, Serge Aurier seems to be going as well. Don't think that many people are massively bothered about that. Although, in fairness, I actually think he was one of the only players that has improved under Jose Mourinho in the last, you know, 18 months or so. I actually think he's got a lot better. I think Dele Alli will probably move on. I think Harry Winks will move on. I think Sissoko will move on. I think that we'll see quite a lot of outgoings anyway. Because look, we're at this point. We've got a lot of Deadwood to shift. We seemingly need the money. We've got to have a new manager come in. Yeah, for the first time, I saw Dele Alli play like Dele Alli against Wolves, and I hadn't seen that in about 3 seasons properly. And I think that a lot of what Ryan Mason's doing at the minute is actually putting people in the shop window. And there's a lot of arguing about why is Eric Dyer still playing, and I can't quite fathom it. But maybe again, it's just to try and get him to play a little bit better at the end of the season and shift him. I'd be hopeful for. You know what? In Ndombele, it's strange that he's not playing, but I can't foresee him going anywhere. So I don't know. I think that whoever comes in, and I haven't got the faintest idea of who it's going to be. I keep thinking to myself, is it going to be a Scott Parker and Ryan Mason double appointment?
I think it's
something like that. It's what?
I think it's too early for both of those. Certainly Mason.
Yeah. And look, don't get me wrong. I really like Scott Parker. I don't necessarily want him to be my manager. But I'm just trying to. I just haven't got a clue. With, you know, like we said, a lot of the options that we thought would come in, such as, you know, a Nagelsmann, that option's off the table now. I'd absolutely love Brendan Rodgers, but I've had many debates with Spurs fans. Why would Brendan Rodgers leave Leicester? What a great thing they've got going there. What an amazing chairman, what an amazing board, and recruitment. Whoever the recruitment staff is, are fantastic. And if you weigh it up, you've got much more chance of winning a trophy at Leicester even prior to the FA Cup than winning a trophy with Spurs, you know. So they would have been my 2 candidates I would have really liked to see. I just don't know. I'm seeing obviously the rumours with Hansi Flick and things like that, but I just don't know at this point.
It speaks to me, like, other than Tim Sherwood, who went on, like Mason, to be interim manager and then permanent, every manager that we've had has literally been appointed within like a week of the previous manager being fired. And this to me just says, I mean, there's rumours, aren't there, that Jose was fired to save money in case he did win the cup.
I reckon that was true. I think that is a typical Enoch, Daniel Levy thing. Sorry, my dog has just hello. He's just popped into the camera. Hello. I think that's a typical Daniel Levy move to do. I think that, you know, they were probably going to do it anyway. They would have just waited till the summer. But I think they probably thought that there obviously was a clause in there, and that if he wins the trophy, then we're going to have to pay him X amount. So I wouldn't put it past him. I don't know if that is true or not, but I would think it sounds very true and very likely if you look at our board.
Yeah, which just begs the question, why even employ him in the first place? But I mean, we're being linked with Roberto Martinez and Gareth Southgate. I mean, give it to Ryan Mason if you're going to give it to them.
Oh yeah, and also the Graham Potter. I see a lot of people, you know, really pushing the Graham Potter debate. And it's no disrespect to Brighton. I think Brighton play very nice football. They've played far better than us when we've played them, that's for sure. And I think he's a very nice manager. But again, it's not someone I look at and I think, is that really where Spurs want to be? Does he have the experience? And then you could turn it around and say, well, did Pochettino? But I think that we were a very different club when Pochettino took over. Again, I think that what Pochettino built and made us all believe, you know, was how good Spurs can be and what Spurs can achieve, you know, if they have the right manager, the right attitude, the right squad, you know, and harmony within that squad. And I think that it's not saying that someone like a Graham Potter or a Roberto Martinez couldn't do it, but I don't think it fills anyone with much confidence.
I confidence, but because of how they played, right, and then obviously bring some players in. But again, it's a rebuild now. I don't think we'll get the Jose, the manager who's been there, done it all, and everything like that. I think it will be a manager of a lower club who then. What do you think of the rumours that if he doesn't win League One with Paris, then Pochettino comes back? That's just going to be hopeful rumours from fans who still love him, right?
That is a complete rumour. So as far as I'm aware, look, he'd be mental to come back because, you know, the situation he left the club in, you know, that's at the time it wasn't great. Okay, and not by his fault. Like I said, it was, in my opinion, it's purely down to the board at that point, you know, and where he'd said so many times, like, we need investment. And it got to that point where it was too far gone that even he couldn't do anything with that squad. And here we are basically with the same squad, another nearly 2 years later with the same problem. I think with, you know, if he doesn't win Ligue 1 and whatever, I think that it's his first season. They're only like a point behind, aren't they? I think they play tonight or tomorrow before Sunday. Again, I've seen a bit of the French league. It's not quite. It's not quite the Premier League, put it that way. And I think that he's come in. They should be walking that league, in my opinion. PSG. I have no doubt if they're there next year, they will anyway. But it's very difficult to compare the Premier League to Liga. But when you have literally like 2 games that are difficult per season, it's the same in La Liga. Like, you only really get 4 or 5 games that are difficult. You know, probably I'd say Germany is the more competitive one out of any of those, you know, foreign leagues. So the Premier League, anyone can beat anyone, and that's what's so great about it. But that's what makes it so much more difficult to be successful in it.
Yeah, I mean, and then even more difficult if you lose your best striker. But I saw a wonderful tweet today, which I'd be happy with. Loan him to Man City for a year and then bring him back. He wins his trophies, gets out of his system. So that will never happen. But if he does go, which is either going to be this season or in the next 2, I'd say, because he will want to win trophies. I mean, the $1 million question, who do you bring in? I mean, people say Mbappe, Haaland, that ain't going to happen. Like, Ings would be a good one, but then
in the Europa League, everyone wants to see Haaland and Mbappe. I'm sure they're desperate to come to the Europa League.
Ings would be a good one. He's probably the kind of natural in terms of a number 9, but he went to Liverpool, struggled. He didn't play that often, which he will play here. But the pressure of coming to Tottenham is you're filling Harry Kane's shoes, which are big shoes to fill, and the expectation will probably be you hit the ground running because we've lost, 25 goals plus out of 14 goals that 13 goals that he's assisted. So you've really got to hit the ground running. But who would you have in?
I don't even know where I start with that, to be fair, because of course I'd love a Haaland, I'd love an Mbappe, but let's be realistic. I mean, neither are going to be coming to Tottenham, especially with no Champions League football. If we'd finished fourth, I could see a potential argument for maybe Haaland coming. Not Mbappe, but Haaland coming. Again, another problem is wages. We are not going to go and give someone 250, 300 grand in wages as a minimum. We're not that type of club. So to attract anyone of top tier level, anyone with massive pedigree in that position, I just can't see it happening unless we completely restructure ourselves, which is just not going to happen. I honestly don't know where we start. I like Danny Ings. I think that'd be a good shout. It's not Harry Kane. It's not even close to Harry Kane. But it's a start with someone else. Bring in as well if Sonny's there too. I just don't know. I really don't. I don't even know where you begin to replace someone that is priceless. Yeah. I don't.
I think we've got a bigger issue as well. I mean, obviously losing Harry Kane is a huge, huge issue. That then becomes a priority. But since Eriksen left, I know he had a really bad last year, but without a playmaker in there, I think Son struggled a little bit. It's interesting to me that he came alive when Kane was essentially the playmaker. So a playmaker comes in and then Son comes alive. But I mean, Eriksen wanted to leave, get rid of him. You don't hang around. You could have got £60 million there. We drop it down to 20 or whatever. You could have got a Fernandes in, a Grealish in, whoever. And I think the way that we're playing is sit back, and then try and counter. It's easy to defend against if you're organised, and it puts so much pressure on our defence, which I think that's part of the reason. I mean, some of them are awful as well, let's be honest. Yeah. I think that's part of the reason why we've been so bad defensively, because they're constantly under pressure, and mentally that's going to take a strain on you. But
yeah, I mean, when you go from playing a totally different way under Pochettino, where you don't, you only focus on your own game and how we play, and don't really bother that much with the opposition, to having someone like Jose Mourinho come in where your whole focus is on the opposition only, it's a lot. It's a very big change in your tactics and how you set up and how you view yourself as a player. But I still believe that their defence is lower down in the league, where I think they could defend better than what I've seen of Spurs at times this season. And I totally agree with you on the Eriksen thing. I don't think we replaced Eriksen. Again, I think we let it run too long. But it's funny because even when Eriksen was probably playing at 50% of his ability, he still could come on, change a game, pick a pass, get the goal where it's needed to, and unlock doors. And I think the thing is, we brought in Lo Celso, and I think that Lo Celso was actually originally brought in to fill that role, but he's not that type of a player. He's actually much better when he likes to be deeper. Which I think that we all read wrong, and I don't know if the club read it wrong, but he's not what we thought he was going to be. And it's not saying I don't like him, but he's not like for like. And I think, again, like you said, we've struggled with that. I think Ndombele is much better when he plays further forward and he can pick a pass. But again, I don't think the midfield's strong enough at the moment to be able to do that. So we have a lot of, I think, square pegs in round holes, as well as a lot of dead wood. And again, I think the whole thing is that none of us know what's going on. None of us know what route we're going to go down next, because we don't have a manager. And if you knew what manager was coming, you'd have an idea potentially of what type of football you'll be playing. And I don't necessarily have an issue with them taking their time on it, because I think with Jose sacking was actually just a bit of a trigger one in terms of how soon on they did it. But I just don't know. I just have no idea how or what the manager is going to do, what type of player they're going to want to buy, and the fact that we're not actually linked to anyone in particular either. Only the one that we were was Nagelsmann, and that's long gone. So there's literally been nothing said since that point.
No, I do wonder, if it's going to be Mason, because either people reject us or people are out of our remit, not out of our means, and they'll just give it to Mason, and they're talking to him now about who do you want to replace Kane. But do you think, I mean, I think we've probably already answered this question, but with Bale, we got a lot of money, had a chance to be. We obviously did better after he came, but a lot of the signings didn't really work out. So we've got a chance to do what Liverpool did after the Coutinho selling.
Yes.
But then we are in the hands of Steve Hitchin, who deals with transfers, who hates transfer deadline day. What a ridiculous job to get into. And Daniel hasn't exactly proved himself good with it. So do you think it will be another missed opportunity, or do you think the manager they'll listen to them? will Daniel Levy listen to a manager? What a ridiculous question.
I really hope, and I said this last night on Holly's podcast, I said, just to play devil's advocate, I really hope that they learn from the past, because like we said, we've seen what Liverpool did with the Coutinho money and how it benefited them massively, actually, from the sale of that one player. And obviously, again, this is not me saying I want Harry to go, but I'm just brainstorming here. After what happened with Gareth Bale, bringing in players where only one of them was successful in Christian Eriksen, obviously we still have Eric Lamela. I don't really think that we can say it's a massive success story, but, two Rabonas. I think that, again, if you look at the recruitment even from back then, I'm trying to think who brought in Nasser Chadli, Benjamin Stambouli. We were bringing Stambouli. Did we bring in Vlad Kirikez, Eriksen, Paulinho? I can't even think of the other two. Lamela.
I felt really sorry for, because that was awful scouting. Because he's a box.
It was, and that's that. What look, I'm actually just going to pull up the picture because I need to see who that last person was. Oh yeah, Etienne Capoue. Right. So if you look at and Soldado, of course. So if you look at who we brought in, none of those people were particularly known. Obviously, Eriksen came from Ajax. Okay, you can probably say we can go out on a limb with that one. Lamela came from Roma. Okay. But you have a look at the others, and no one, you have probably, again, and it's funny because I always hate that Danny Rose did this, but Danny Rose was correct in saying, you shouldn't actually have to Google the people you're signing. And I'll never forgive Danny Rose for, doing that to Pochettino after all the things that Pochettino did to get Danny Rose back playing and actually, defying the odds against him at the time. But he was correct in saying that, you shouldn't have to Google the players you're signing. And I think that if Harry goes and if we get 150, 200 million, I think that sometimes less is more. We know we need a centre half. A very good centre half is going to cost you between 50 to 70 million. Go and pay the money for it. It is, it's something that is not even optional. It is a requirement now for us, at least one. And I'd like two. You need. I know Oliver Skip is coming back. Very happy to see what Oliver Skip offers us, but a playmaker. We need a playmaker. So again, go and spend money on that. It's going to cost you a little bit. Put your money into that. And then, of course, you need a striker. And even if with that money you bring in 3 players, but all 3 are of great pedigree, that's a start. Reinvest it back into the squad well. Because like I said, you'll get outgoings this summer. You'll get money for Serge Aurier, potentially Dele Alli, potentially Harry Winks, potentially Sissoko, etc. So you will get money from your sales as well, which you can also bring in another right back. I don't think Lloris will be going anywhere because a good keeper is extortionate. The money you have to pay, and that's just not an area I think that we can fulfill at this point. I just don't. But if you reinvest that money correctly in good pedigree, with 3 players, 2, 3, 4 players, hopefully, if it's stretched that far with 200 million, I think that is a start. And sometimes quality is much better than quantity. And I'd hope that is what Spurs, Daniel Levy, Steve Hitchin have learned. Because if I look at who Steve Hitchin's recruited, since he's been there, there's probably 4, 5, 6 players that you could say, okay, they've done well out of probably 30. And that's where the recruitment has to be much better.
Yeah, I agree. And like you mentioned Lo Celso there, I totally agree. I don't think he's an Everton player. I think we've got too many similar players. Harry Winks I'll include as well, but his confidence is completely shot to pieces, so he just looks back.
Yeah.
But him and Ndombele and Lo Celso are all and Sissoko are all midfielders who want to drive forward. Playmaker is someone who drops deep, gets the ball and springs it. It dictates the play, which, I mean, why we either sold him or didn't replace Dembele, who was possibly the most underrated player we've ever had in my lifetime anyway. And then Eriksen, I never know. And
Well, it was that thing that they wanted to get some money for him, so they'd rather cash in at 12 million and just say they got something for it than wait, because, and again, he could have been the difference between, you know, potentially winning a Champions League final, potentially, you know, winning in an FA Cup or something like that. He could have been the difference. But obviously, when, again, it all comes back to, you know, not letting people go on a free, and that's precisely why he also made Toby Alderweireld sign the extension, because he couldn't bear the thought of both Jan Vertonghen and Toby going on a free, you know, in the same summer. Couldn't bear it. That's why he made him sign the extension. Probably not for footballing reasons, if we're honest.
Yeah, I mean, losing Dembele, I mean, the big problem we have at the moment, I mentioned the pressure on the defence, is not being able to keep the ball and Dembele, Kevin De Bruyne, Eden Hazard say he's the best one in Belgium. And I mean, surely that says something. But I think Ndombele could be that, because he's got the ability to keep the ball. But there was one game, I can't remember who it was against. It was one of the ones where we played terribly. I know that doesn't really narrow it down. He beat, I think it was Chelsea actually. He beat Mason Mount, I think. Looked up for pass, nothing, no one moving. Beat him again, looked up. And I mean, that's what we had with Eriksen, with Son. Similar with Kane and Son now. Son knows when Kane or Eriksen had the ball, if he's in space, found. And I think Dele Alli has really lost out with Eriksen going. Eriksen came deep, left a massive space in the middle. And I think Ali's far, far better off the ball, and I don't think his passing's good enough.
Yeah.
I think he's going to have a resurgence now. Mourinho out. He played quite well against Wolves, although he still can't pass 5 metres sometimes. But he played a lot better than I've seen. Do you think that will be a kind of... And he's only 25. Do you think that will be a resurgence, or do you think we will cash in on him or he'll last?
I think that we'll cash in, personally, on Dele. I think that, and like you said, I thought he played really well against Wolves. Actually, the best I've seen him play in many seasons. He looked a lot more vibrant. He looked much better, more energetic, and looked happier as well to be playing. But I just think that there comes a point where probably he needs a fresh start, and I think that we need a fresh start too. So I think that I'd be surprised if we didn't cash in, because obviously he was off to PSG at Christmas time, and then obviously Daniel Levy decided he didn't want to sell him. So I think that he's had a good 6 months in the shop window. He's had... People know what you're going to get with Dele Alli. Obviously, since Mason's come in, he's played quite a bit more. And I think that he probably would be better for both if we just cashed in. I think that sometimes you just need to let go.
Do you think that's the same for Winks as well? I think.
Yeah, I really like Harry Winks. I always really liked Harry. I had really high expectations for him. And again, I think that with Ndombele going, I think that he was developing really well alongside him and learning from him, and also under Pochettino. And then obviously Pochettino's gone too. And I think that he's just kind of fell by the wayside a bit, confidence and, you know, knowing when to pick a pass and things like that. So again, I think that'll be another one. As much as I didn't particularly want to cash in on it, I think that it will be one that we do cash in on. But again, it all entirely depends on who comes in and who's the manager.
Yeah, I think Winks was probably the biggest casualty in Mourinho coming in. You've got Pochettino there, who I think was an arm around the shoulder. If things don't go right, don't worry, try again next time. Mourinho, you do something wrong, get out of my sight, get out of the team. I think that's had a massive effect on him there. And you saw in the cup final, I think Carragher mentioned it, he had 10 metres in front of him and he turns around and passes it to Dyer, which he said was lack of courage. I think that's a huge confidence issue. One midfielder who has been positive this season, we've spoken for about half an hour now on negative stuff, Hojbjerg, and he showed a different side to his game against Wolves. Maybe not as further forward, but picking passes out. But the pass to Kane for the goal was superb. Do you think?
I think he's a great player, and actually one that I was totally underwhelmed by when I heard he was coming. But I like that he is passionate. I like that he will put his body on the line. I think he's a leader, and he doesn't have to be the most skillful player in that role that he does. He just gets and does all the dirty work, and I like that type of player as well. I'm not afraid to give it a hands dirty, but I think that he's not the one that should be picking the passes. I don't think that's his job personally. I think that maybe when we see Oliver Skip come in, I assume Oliver Skip will come in and will play. I think that that's potentially a role we need to look at. If it's not going to be Skip, it needs to be someone else. But I don't think that that's Hojbjerg's job to be picking passes and scoring goals and doing that. He's you know, I don't think that's his bag, and I don't expect it to be. But I like the type of attitude he brings, you know, to the club. And I think that unfortunately Spurs have had a lack of leaders in the last few years. So him coming in and showing that quality, I'm all for.
Yeah, I mean, I did think possibly he could be moved further forward, then we get a defensive midfielder, but he's been so good in that role. I think he's suffered from a little bit of burnout in the last month or two. I think he played 51 games this season, hasn't he? It's a bit silly,
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Wolves didn't really pose much threat other than Adama Traore, who's lightning quick. They're a completely different proposition when Raul Jimenez doesn't play. Hopefully he makes a speedy recovery. He's going for a scan today, I think. But in terms of our season, I mean, Tottenham seasons are roller coasters anyway, and this has been even more ridiculous. We were top in November, everyone working together, seemingly on the same page, backing each other up. We lose a couple of games, all of a sudden, wheels come off. What do you put that complete slump down to, or do you just think we were top, full stop, because we just, I mean, the table doesn't lie, we just weren't good enough to stay there?
I think that it's a bit of confidence. I think that we weren't particularly playing great, but obviously we were getting results. And I think that they obviously at the time believed in whatever Jose was doing. I think a very big turning point was that game at Anfield just before Christmas, you know, where Steven Bergwijn was through on goal, and that didn't go in. And of course we had other opportunities as well to do that. And finish the game. But I think that was a bit of, I think for me, that's when the heads kind of dropped a bit. And I think they found it really difficult to recover after it. You know, we had Leicester a couple of days later and we just looked so deflated that game and we lost. And I think we just got ourselves into a bit of a rut. And I think that with Jose, where Jose is so stubborn in the way that he wanted to play, when things, again, just weren't going our way, we weren't playing well, we weren't getting results. And obviously he wasn't changing anything his side. He was very adamant, this is how we're going to play. And it only really changed in terms of how he wanted to play after, you know, at Zagreb, really, you know, and after that. And unfortunately for me, it was too late. We'd already lost, you know, 3 months in almost of the season since when we kind of slid down from top. And it was too late. It was too late to change anything because, you know, whatever had been said behind closed doors had been said. And obviously started blaming players. And unfortunately, with this whole culture in today's game, you can't blame players even if they deserve the blame. You know, there's a way of man managing. And I think that players are too airy-fairy in this day and age. Also, maybe Mourinho's approach is a little bit outdated too. And it's unfortunate because there was such high hopes. We looked great and looked like everyone was on board. And I for one was surprised because I wasn't, like I said earlier, I wasn't a massive Jose fan. But after the documentary, I was like, you know what, I'm going to wipe the slate clean. I'm going to give it a go. You know, at the end of the day, he's the manager. I'm going to get behind him because he's the manager of my club. And it all just went very sour, very, very quickly. And that will just shows you that it wasn't the right appointment for both sides. And when you're playing negative football, a lot of players won't like that. You know, a lot of players won't like it because every time you concede, it's like, well, why are we not changing anything? And there's always been that discussion of he didn't really focus on the attacking side of Spurs game and didn't focus on what they were going to do, just on what the opposition were going to do. And I reckon that can probably be disheartening too. And you're so bothered about your opposition that you don't focus on what you have to do.
Yeah, I mean, I was stupid on here as well. Like November, I was talking to them, thinking about like open top bus parades in May and should have known better. But do you think the negative football would have, the players have come out, Kane and Lloris in particular, saying that Jose didn't ask us to play like that, he asked us to attack. Do you think that would have changed if fans were at the stadium, because the fans would have booed, made their feelings known, and maybe the players would have gone, okay, we've got to try and turn this round? Or do you think this is what?
I don't know. I think fans play a massive role. I think, you know, a team we've seen that hugely with is actually West Ham and Liverpool. You know, West Ham have done much better without their fans, and Liverpool have done far worse without their fans. So I don't know whether or not it would have made much difference. But like I said, going back to pre-corona, that last game, the atmosphere was so toxic with fans. So I think that in a way it benefited us. But maybe you're right. Maybe at a time where they may have needed a 12th man, the 12th man wasn't actually there to, you know, try and like steady the ship in that sense. and give him a bit of a confidence boost when needed. But you could also look at it that if fans would have been there, would his departure would it have come sooner? Perhaps, if things hadn't changed. All I know, it's been a very rocky few years for Spurs, and now they've got to take their time. They've got to make the right appointment, because I just don't think we can afford to fuck this up again. Excuse my French. There wasn't another way to put it.
Yeah. I mean, 4 years isn't a particularly long time in football. 4 years ago, we were second in the league, undefeated at home, and then thinking, right, okay, we've got a real good foundation there. We had a real spine throughout the team. And like I say, 4 years isn't a particularly long amount of time, and it's completely derailed, and we're back onto a rebuild again. I mean, we've got a game against Villa tomorrow. Fans will allow about 10,000, I think. I don't know if you're going. I
am going. I am one of those lucky 10,000. I will be there.
Are you taking a Enoch out banner, or if not, do you expect there to be a lot, or do you think just be support the team?
I want to enjoy Harry's last game, what I expect Harry's last game to be. If there's protests before, I'll fully be involved in them. I'm not going to take an Enoch out banner, because I don't think a banner, in my opinion, I don't think an Enoch out banner is going to do much good or make much difference. I think I think the thing is that with the protest that went on Saturday, and I was obviously speaking to Holly and Stell yesterday from Tottenham Away podcast as well. I think if the Villa game would have stayed as being on Saturday, I think they would have got a bigger turnout. And I think they said there was 600-700 people there. But the fact they moved the game to a midweek game, and people had to go down there, and there was no reason, there was no players there that Daniel Levy wasn't there. I think that if it would have had that, and I would expect if people want to protest, I would have thought to do it on a match day like tomorrow. So I'm fully in support of people protesting. I fully agree with everything they're saying. I'd join it too. But no, I won't be taking a banner into the game. I'm just going to enjoy being a lucky person back, watching another football game before hopefully we're all back come August time, and just give Harry Kane a good old send off.
How do you see the game going? Do you think it'll be? Because we seem to play under Mason, play quite well, and look up for it at home, and away from home and just completely the opposite. Do you think we'll be bang at it from the first whistle and try and kill them off early, or do you?
I think we'll play. I think we'll play well. Like you said, we've played all right at home. We played quite well. I think we'll win tomorrow. I don't think we'll win on Sunday. I didn't think we'd win, against Leicester. I don't think we will, especially with fans back in. I don't think we'd win that one. But I do expect to win this one.
Yeah, and there were obviously protests at the weekend, and I got involved. I got tweeted on with a load of other people. There seemed to be a lot of arguments about drunken idiots there and other things like that. But I have no idea what happened, so I'm not going to say what I thought happened. But what got me is that Spurs fans were arguing. They were all there to against Levy, and now all of a sudden it's Spurs fans against Spurs fans. But again, I have no idea what happened, so I don't really want to say anything like that.
I wasn't there. I didn't go. But from what I heard, it was a small portion of people were quite drunk. The rest were just obviously there for the right reason. And some people, some younger fans were getting a little bit rowdy and singing stupid songs that and it just took a bit away from actually what the protest was to be about. But as far as I'm aware, there is another protest tomorrow, which is run by the Supporters Trust. Yeah. So I think if anyone wants to rejoin a protest, that's probably the one that you should be looking at to go to.
It needs to be peaceful and not like singing.
Yeah, I think that the Spurs Twitter can be Twitter in general, and especially Spurs Twitter, because we're a large part of it and we see it, can be very, very negative and can be very toxic to each other. And I think that when everyone now has the same goal as to what we want for our club, just stop fighting with each other. It's really just not necessary. Respect people's opinions about how they want to protest, what they want to say at said protest, especially when the end goal is that everyone wants the best for our club and everyone wants to get their voice heard. So just, no need to be calling people out for what they do. Just get behind each other, because we all have the same end goal.
Yeah, I totally agree. But like I say, I just saw the tweets. I didn't see anything about it, and then it turned into an argument, so I don't want to be caught to another one. In terms of Kane leaving, do you think that will... I mean, it kind of sets a negative tone in the sense that you're letting your best player go. So in terms of coming in, you're not moving in the right direction, you're moving backwards. Do you think that will stop us? Grealish has been mentioned, but do you think Grealish would come if we sold Harry Kane? And I mean, he's obviously Villa's main man. I mean, if Kane stays here and he comes, he's not Tottenham's main man. But if Kane goes and Grealish comes in, could he become the main man, or do you think he'd still stay at Villa? He's a Villa fan, and they're doing.
Again, I think that we were mental that we didn't buy Jack Grealish when we had the chance three years ago or so. It would have been a fantastic appointment for me. That is pretty much an Eriksen like for like in terms of what they can bring to the team and what they offer. I think if he's going to be probably triple what we would have paid then now, but I think it's worth the money. I think that we have to accept the fact Harry Kane is probably going to go, whether it be now or next year. Harry Kane is going to go. So I think that while we are going to have a new manager, while we're going to have this new rebuild, then I don't know. It like I said, it really depends how you use the money wisely. But I'd be very happy to see someone like Jack Grealish come to the club. I don't think Harry Kane would affect his decision personally. I think that if Tottenham came in for him and they said to Villa, we're going to give you 60, 70 million for Jack Grealish, I think Villa would take it, and I think that Jack Grealish would be happy to come.
Yeah, I think, like you said there, we had him 3 years ago. 25 million they wanted, and he refused to pay more than 23. I don't really understand what 2 million is when you're paying 23.
No idea.
I mean, it's refusing to go to one pub because it's 20p more expensive for a pint than another pub. It's just ridiculous. But yeah, I mean, I think he will go this year, unfortunately, and it's his last big contract, Kane, isn't it? Really?
Well, it depends. I mean, look, he's 27. He's nearly be 28, I guess. For him to. Yeah, I mean, this is a big move for him. If he goes to Manchester City, for example, replace Aguero, oh my God, the amount of goals the guy will score, it would just be a joke. He'll get that Alan Shearer title in no time, I believe. I mean, this is his big move. He could probably have another one after. He might go to, let's say, Manchester City, decide at 31 he wants to go elsewhere, go to Madrid, go to Barcelona. I think that he's got more than one big move in him, but I think this is the move that will probably count the most.
Yeah, I hope what happens, he's obviously going to leave at some point, that he does kind of a Sheringham, comes back. Obviously, Sheringham didn't finish his career with us. It was kind of the twilight of his career, but that would be good to see. He wins his trophies. He's obviously a Spurs fan, comes back, finishes his career with us. I think that'd be good. And I think fans would welcome him back as well. As long as he doesn't go to
as long as he doesn't go to Chelsea. I don't believe he's the type of guy to go to Chelsea. So I think we might have that on our side.
But yeah, I mean, it was just, we never get any peace, Spurs fans, do we? We have a win, which we haven't had for a while, and then literally 48 hours later, we're back down in the doldrums again. But yeah, God knows what else will happen. We've got the Euros, obviously. I think this transfer saga is going to go on and on and on all the way through that. And I mean, it would not surprise me if next season he's still playing for us.
I think it's going to be a very interesting summer, and I don't think anything will be resolved before the Euros.
No.
So
I don't either. But yeah, unfortunately, we've run out of time at work. I've got to go and actually do some work again. But it's been great talking to you. Thanks so much.
Thanks. My pleasure. Thank you very much for having me.
No problem. Before you go, you are on Twitter. If anyone doesn't follow you or anything like that, where can they find you?
They can find me at Abbi_Summers on Twitter, or on Instagram, it's at Abbi Summers.
Excellent. Thanks again so much. Been great to talk to you.
Pleasure. Nice to meet you.
Come back on again, and hopefully it will be in better circumstances to talk about no horrible news.
We hope so. We can only hope, right? Yeah. Better season ahead.
Yeah. Thanks so much for watching. Before you go, please make sure you give the like and subscribe buttons a click. Any questions, comments, or any suggestions for future episodes, if you just add those into a comment on the YouTube video. If you're listening to the audio only podcast, thanks so much for listening. Anyone who wants the audio only podcast, you can get that at Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your audio podcast from. Alternatively, if you go to Twitter at LTalkTottenham, you can find all the information there. I'll be back soon. Until then, come on, you Spurs!